Hi folks, welcome to this final video that has us preparing the balance of the statements, that being the statement of changes in equity and the equity section of the balance sheet. So you remember with the statement of changes in equity, we start with the titles of all of the equity section accounts, and you'll remember from the question we did have preferred and common shares. Now we didn't talk too much about this account, contributed surplus. This is the same as contributed capital. We've taken contributed capital before that's been created on, say, common share retirement, for example, when we were working earlier in our chapter. So contributed surplus is the same as contributed capital as the account. So not to worry about that, but we did have it in our question as an opening balance, if you remember. We had it right in here. Contributed surplus right in here, $2,000 credit. So we need to make sure that we have that amount here in our statement of changes in equity. Now, you'll remember that we were given $100,000 as our ending balance. There were no new preferred shares issued during the year, so we must have started with $100,000. Retained earnings of $120,000 again was given to us in the question, if you remember, right here. So we know what our opening balance was there. The only thing we weren't given that we would have had to work backwards to find is our opening balance of common shares. You remember that at the end of 2009, they did tell us in the question that we had $139,000 worth of common shares. Well, what you had to do here is you had to remember that during the year you also issued 40,000. So how many did you have at the beginning of the year such that when you issued 40,000 you wound up with the number that we gave you in the question, which is 139,000. So you kind of had to work backwards to figure out 99,000 here. But you'll notice if you're adding across, it does give you 321,000, which is exactly what we were told in the question. We were told that our equity to end last year or to open this year would be 321. So what you could have done here as well, if you wanted to, is you could have worked with 321 and then said, well, if I know I have preferred shares of 100,000, contributed surplus or contributed capital of 2,000 and retained earnings of 120,000, and I know my total equity is 321,000, I could work backwards to find 99,000 that way as well. So whichever way is fine. Now, what happened during the year to change our equity position? Well, we issued some new shares, $40,000 worth of shares. Again, we had that in the question right here. And the other thing we know is that we had income during the year of $154,710. That was your income or profit for 2009. We just did that in the income statement. And we also know, based on the question, that we declared dividends during the year of $58,000. And that's right here. We had some cash dividends. So therefore, if we complete the statement by adding the columns together, including the totals column, we'll find that in my case, because I used a 19% rate, I'm going to have my total equity of $457,710, and that's made up of retained earnings when I add this column here of $216,710, and the contributed surplus, common shares, and preferred shares are what we had in the question. Now, to finish off, let's do the equity section of the balance sheet. Remember here, I'm going to use now my contributed capital title because I have more than one contributed capital account. I have preferred shares, common, and contributed capital, which is or I should say contributed surplus is what we've been calling it here. But that's just another name, means the same thing. So this is an opportunity really to give you different names that you might see in your practice of accounting for the same accounts. So we've referred to it as contributed surplus in our account, so we'll leave it like that. But you'll notice here that we do say for the preferreds, they go first, and you'll notice that we refer to the number authorized and issued, and we also state the dividend here, which is the annual per share dividend. We know that the total dollar value is $100,000. We got that from the statement of changes in equity, right? We also know that our common shares authorization is unlimited, so we need to do a little bit to describe the issue and to say that we have 93,500 shares issued and outstanding, and we know from the statement of changes in equity that's 139,000. And again, we also had that in the question because they gave us that amount in there as well. Again, if you're unsure, we had it the final number of shares and the $139,000 there. All right. Now we know our contributed surplus or contributed capital is $2,000. So our total contributed capital, if we add up these three amounts, is $241,000. To that we'll add our retained earnings. And in my case, because I used a 19% tax rate, I'm going to have $457,710. Okay, so this concludes the preparation of our statements. Now, the one thing you might want to do as well is once you're finished your income statement and all of your statements, finish the assignment, you might want to consult the check figures that I posted in your course, because they will give you, for all the different tax rates, the amounts that you should have come up with as check figures, so you can check your work before you submit this assignment to the Dropbox. Anyway, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. I hope you found the videos helpful.